This time, Ed will push himself through some of the harshest environments on Earth, challenging top survival masters from around the world. At nearly 50 years old, can he still maintain the unbeatable form of a legendary survivalist? Let's follow along and find out. The location of this challenge is the Amazon rainforest. Ed once spent nearly 3 years here, walking close to 7,000 kilometers through its wild terrain, carving out his legend as a survivalist. So for him, returning to the Amazon feels just like coming home. No one knows this land better than he does, and he's arrived with a completely relaxed and confident mindset. His opponent this time is Tony, a man who served in the Special Forces for 13 years. His wilderness survival skills are truly formidable, so when Tony saw Ed, he wasn't afraid at all. After greeting each other, the two began their journey toward the central region of the rainforest. First, they passed through the high mountain forests and made their way to the lower reaches of the Black River. The Amazon is one of the largest and most ancient rainforests in the world, home to countless ferocious predators. One careless move, and you might just vanish without a trace. Both competitors were allowed to bring only a single knife as their tool. No other survival gear was provided. As required by the referee, this unprecedented showdown officially began. As soon as both of them hit the water, they began frantically swimming toward the mainland, which was 3 kilometers away. Ed's swimming skills weren't exactly his strong suit, while Tony seemed much more at ease. His swimming speed was impressive. Luckily for Ed, he spotted a clump of floating grass drifting along the river. He quickly swam over and used it as a temporary resting spot to catch his breath. On the other side, it didn't take long for Tony to reach the shore. Despite swimming a 3-kilometer stretch, he didn't seem the least bit tired. Without wasting any time, he immediately started searching for food before Ed could even make it to land. Without a second thought, Tony headed straight into the jungle. More than 2 hours had passed, and Ed was still lying under the sun on the river, his strength not yet fully recovered. It would be too risky to swim in his condition. Suddenly, a piece of driftwood floated by. It was like a lifeline thrown his way. Clinging to the wooden log, Ed managed to slowly make his way to the shore. This journey had already cost Ed 4 hours, and with nightfall approaching, he had to quickly build a shelter. In front of him, he spotted a small pond. The surface was densely covered with water lilies, and these could be just the thing to help fill his stomach. He quickly picked some to eat, then spotted another insect hiding in the lotus leaves, a bonus protein source to help boost his energy. On Tony's side, he had been running non-stop through the rainforest when he suddenly came to a halt. It looked like a snake was blocking his path. As he cautiously approached to check, it turned out to be just a dry leaf. The false alarm made him more alert. After all, this was his first time in the jungle, and he knew he couldn't let his guard down. He gathered a large number of tree barks, tied them around his legs, and used them as makeshift armor. This gave him a sense of safety, even though the rainforest was full of hidden dangers. He continued deeper into the jungle without taking a single break, knowing that his opponent was Ed, a true survival expert. Tony wanted to use this opportunity to widen the gap between them. Suddenly, he spotted a wild chestnut on the path, about the size of a watermelon. This wasn't too surprising, considering this was the Amazon, the largest tropical rainforest in the world. Wild chestnuts are rich in starch and vegetable oils, providing a great source of energy for the body. Tony couldn't believe how smoothly things were going. But with the sun beginning to set, he knew he had to quickly find a place to sleep, unless he wanted to become a midnight buffet for jungle mosquitoes. Meanwhile, Ed was busy chopping down trees to build his shelter. The first step was to set up 2 solid support poles. Then, he tied palm leaves onto the wooden stakes. Just like that, a wild outdoor tent was ready. Without wasting time, Ed moved on to building a fire. In less than 5 minutes, a thin trail of smoke began to rise, followed by a small campfire coming to life. Next, Ed began crafting a bed using palm leaves, getting everything ready for a good night's sleep. Tony was also planning to build a shelter, but with so many insects swarming around him, he decided it needed to be suspended above the ground. He then gathered palm leaves and arranged them around his sleeping area. This would help protect him from both rain and bugs. By the next morning, Tony woke up, packed up his shelter from the night before, and continued moving forward. He kept running madly deeper into the jungle, determined to reach the Black River before Ed. The tropical rainforest was swarming with mosquitoes and ants, and Tony was bitten nonstop throughout his journey. He paused for a moment to think, then realized that the acid in a mosquito nest could repel mosquitoes. Using a wooden stick, he poked the nest and smeared its contents all over his body. This time, it actually seemed to offer real protection against mosquito bites. While walking, Tony suddenly spotted a large rat hole on the ground. Not willing to pass up the protein right in front of him, he began crafting a hunting tool. First, he made a bow from a sturdy stick, then twisted strips of tree bark into a string. He sharpened a few thin bamboo sticks to use as arrows. A quality bow and arrow set was now complete. Ed, on the other hand, took a simpler approach. He just kept moving forward, aiming to reach the Black River area first and figure things out later. Thanks to his strong ability to endure hunger, he only needed water to keep going. He chose to walk along the river for better safety compared to traveling through the forest, although this meant his pace would be slower. To speed things up, he went ashore and chopped down a few hollow tree trunks, using them as makeshift flotation devices to help conserve energy. He thought this would be a safe solution, but to his horror, he suddenly realized there was an anaconda right beneath his feet. This creature could easily kill a crocodile. It's the true king of the river. Ed had no intention of facing it head-on, so he quickly retreated to the shore and continued his journey through the forest instead. But this didn't bother Ed at all. These water vines could easily replenish his hydration. Even though he accidentally slipped while climbing, he didn't mind. He simply chopped the vine and drank straight from it. The taste was like chilled aloe vera juice, refreshing and invigorating. Seeing that it was getting dark again, Ed planned to build a temporary shelter using the bark from the water vines. He used them to craft a hammock. Just as he was about to lie down for a quick rest, the hammock collapsed beneath him. He froze for a few seconds, then let out a sheepish laugh. There wasn't much else he could do. By the time he finished his work, night had already fallen. Ed sat down by the fire, warming up and drying his feet. After being trapped in his boots all day, they definitely needed it. Tony had no intention of building a shelter. He was still sprinting toward the finish line. His sole goal was to defeat Ed. But after traveling for so long without any sign of the Black River, doubt started to creep in. Maybe I've gone the wrong way, he thought. To reorient himself, he realized the only way was to trace back the path he had taken. His heart sank slightly. Clearly, he had strayed off course once again. Suddenly, the surface of the water rippled slightly. Based on his experience, he knew something big was lurking nearby. He slowly approached the puddle, and it turned out to be a giant electric eel. This was a huge source of protein. That night, he enjoyed a delicious meal of grilled electric eel, smoky and rich with flavor. The challenge continued into the third day. Ed had gotten about 3 kilometers ahead of Tony and reached the bank of the Black River first. But after 2 full days without a proper meal, his body was reaching its limit. He spotted a mysterious fruit hanging from a tree, its origin unknown. Ed had no idea if it was poisonous or not, but at this point, he could only take the risk. The fruit tasted sweet and sour, much like a loquat. It seemed harmless, at least for now. While gathering his spoils, Ed came across a carob tree. In the Amazon rainforest, these carobs are much larger than the ones you'd find in a supermarket. He split one open and tasted it. The flavor was bitter, with a hint of sweetness, strange but not unpleasant. A little while later, Ed found a few palm fruits on the ground. Though they were already dried up, he pried open the hard shells. What he was really after was the fat, juicy insect hiding inside. The rich, nutty flavor was unmistakable. That familiar aroma brought back memories, just like the first day he set foot in this wild jungle. Combined with the wild fruits he had gathered in the morning, his jungle-style rice ball packed with insect protein was finally ready. Meanwhile, Tony had been walking through the jungle for an entire day and night without catching a glimpse of the Black River. If things kept going like this, night would fall again before he got there. But after more than 3 exhausting hours, he finally found a water source. This was it, the long-awaited Black River. Upon reaching the Black River, he decided to build a raft to cross it. First, he gathered a large number of logs from the surrounding area. Then, he used palm fibers to tie them tightly together. After a while, A sturdy raft was finally completed. This was a great opportunity for him to catch up with Ed. Ed, on the other hand, wasn't having such a smooth time. He got stuck in a swamp, and every step became slower and more difficult. The water level kept rising as he moved forward. Not wanting to lose, he decided to build a raft. He cut down several palm trees to construct it, but the trees had been soaked in water for too long and had completely lost their buoyancy. Things suddenly took a turn for the better. He found a few dead trees floating on the surface of the water. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly built a small raft using these logs. And so, he continued his journey towards the finish line. The sky was showing signs of rain, and at this moment, he urgently needed to build a shelter. He began constructing a makeshift place to spend the night. Despite the increasing intensity of the rain, the water level was rising steadily, and he knew he could be swept away at any moment. He placed a layer of sticks on a frame to make a bed, and gathered a lot of palm leaves to create a roof. It seemed much better now, but the situation was still precarious. On this side, Tony continued to paddle forward tirelessly. Despite being drenched in rain and feeling his body growing weary, he had no intention of stopping. To complete his journey upstream, he had to keep moving. He paddled his boat until nightfall, then pulled ashore to rest. All he needed was to lie on the ground and fall into a deep sleep. The challenge had entered its fourth day. Ed woke up and got out of bed. He had slept quite comfortably the night before. What's more, he had managed to craft a paddle. Now his paddling speed had doubled. On this side, although Tony was ahead of Ed, he found himself in a state of crisis. His body was utterly exhausted, and unlike Ed, he didn't have a paddle. He could only use his hands to row, but the speed was painfully slow. Suddenly, Ed appeared right behind him in a completely unexpected way. Thanks to his paddle, Ed was moving swiftly along the river. With his strong, muscular arms, he rowed like a true professional boat racer. Tony saw Ed getting closer and knew that there was no way he could beat him on the water. Without hesitation, he quickly ran ashore. Taking a shortcut through the forest was his only chance now. In order to beat Ed, he didn't hesitate to wade into the water, even though his swimming skills were still limited. Ed also ran into the jungle to compete with Tony, but he chose a safer route. Instead of swimming across the dangerous river, he decided to take the path through the forest. The finish line was just ahead. Ed picked up speed, swimming toward the boat where the referee was waiting. But then something unexpected happened. The referee announced that the winner was Tony. Ed was stunned. A wave of disappointment washed over him, and he couldn't hide the sadness in his expression. But it was okay. After all, this was just a survival challenge. He smiled, congratulated Tony on his victory, and was happy to walk away with a new friend by his side. This time, Ed Stafford is in real trouble. The fierce cold of the forest has shaken him to the core. It seems he's no longer able to endure the biting chill. Let's find out what happened. The location of this challenge is Venezuela, a vibrant and diverse natural masterpiece. From the snow-covered peaks of the Andes Mountains to the vast Llanos plains where herds of cattle graze under the endless sky, the lush Amazon rainforest hides thousands of rare animal and plant species, while Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall in the world, plunges dramatically from sheer cliffs, creating a breathtakingly majestic scene. Along the Caribbean coast, soft white sands and crystal-clear waters make Venezuela a paradise for sea lovers and adventure seekers alike. Ed is now aboard the plane, heading to the challenge location. After a safe landing, he strips off his clothes, carrying only his camera and emergency survival kit. Before beginning his journey, he stands on a hilltop, taking a moment to admire the breathtaking beauty of the natural landscape. Then, he grabs his backpack and begins descending the mountain. The terrain here is steep and slippery, so he carefully watches his surroundings as he moves, not wanting to risk injury. Along the way, he peels some tree bark and weaves it into a grass skirt, and it seems he's quite fond of his new outfit. To look more like a true primitive man, Ed smashes a piece of red quartz to craft a jungle knife, a tool sharp enough to cut and useful for hunting. As the sky begins to darken and the temperature drops rapidly, he knows that staying here too long could mean freezing to death. Without hesitation, he picks up the pace and heads down the mountain. Along the way, he spots a wild beehive clinging to a cliff face. The thought of sweet, Wild honey is just too tempting to resist. Ignoring the angry swarm, he bravely lifts a rock slab and pulls out the honeycomb. The taste is absolutely divine. Hands down the best thing he's eaten since the challenge began. Carefully watching every step, it doesn't take long before Ed reaches the riverbank, a spot that seems perfect for setting up camp for the night. He knows he must act fast to build a shelter before darkness falls. The tent has to be large and sturdy enough to withstand the heavy rains common in this region. But just as he's about to lay the roof with leaves, the sky opens up and the rain starts pouring. Everything is quickly spiraling out of his control. That night, Ed had an unforgettable experience. As temperatures in the forest plummeted, his shelter, still without a proper roof, offered no protection from the cold. His body trembled uncontrollably, and signs of hypothermia began to set in. Not wanting this to become his final survival journey, Ed was left with no choice but to use his emergency rescue kit to save himself. Without it, he wouldn't have made it through the night. After a terrifying night, Ed's body had grown weak, but he knew he had no choice. He had to finish roofing his shelter, or he'd be reliving the same nightmare again. Gathering as many fresh leaves as he could find, he pushed through his exhaustion and got to work. By midday, the shelter was nearly complete. Next on his list, dry firewood. But in such a damp rainforest, finding dry wood was almost a luxury. Just when things seemed hopeless, Ed stumbled upon a majestic waterfall. The sight filled him with excitement, and he couldn't resist moving closer for a better look. But in his eagerness, he slipped and fell, nearly plunging straight into the water below. However, what caught Ed's eye was the lifeless body of an animal lying beneath the waterfall. It seemed the heavy rain from the previous night had swept it down the cascade. As Ed pulled it from the water, he realized it was a yellow-throated marten. Using a rock, he scraped off the fur and examined the meat. Its flesh still looked fresh and edible. Wasting no time, he processed it and carried his unexpected prize back to camp. This gift from nature instantly lifted his spirits. He then made his way down to the plains in search of dry wood. After gathering what he could find, he returned to camp and resumed his mission to light a fire. To his surprise, luck was on his side once more. Within minutes, a flame sprang to life. Finally, Ed could grill the meat and enjoy a warm, satisfying meal. He skewered the marten's organs and grilled them over the fire, turning them left and right to get an even roast. And just like that, the meal was ready. Taking a big bite, Ed savored the rich, smoky flavor of the grilled skewer. All the exhaustion from the previous day seemed to melt away with each chew. Now, with a full belly and a warm fire, it was finally time to get some well-deserved rest. After a restful night's sleep, Ed woke up the next morning to continue enjoying the gift Mother Nature had given him. Unlike previous challenges where hunger constantly stalked him, this time he had plenty of food and the luxury of eating whenever he wanted. Over the next few days, Ed kept things simple, wandering around the area to gather firewood for grilling meat. He also took time to expand his shelter, making it more spacious and comfortable. To avoid getting soaked by the damp forest floor, he crafted a simple bed for himself. Lying down on it, Ed finally allowed himself a moment to relax, soaking in the peaceful, wild beauty of this fascinating life. In the blink of an eye, it was already day 4. When Ed woke up, he was met with bad news. His camp was at risk of flooding as the river's water level was rising rapidly. But that wasn't even the worst part. The real problem was that he had run out of food and needed energy fast. Ed set his sights on the fish in the river, deciding they would be his next target. He noticed that palm fronds were perfect for crafting a trap. So, using every survival trick he knew, from leaping, chopping, pulling, to bending, he finally gathered all the materials needed to build a fish trap. Not stopping there, Ed even munched on some palm heart, which was soft and edible, giving him a quick boost of energy. But on his way back to camp, he suddenly spotted a tuft of fur on the ground. His instincts kicked in. There was definitely a predator nearby. He needed to get back to camp immediately. First, Ed rolled up some vines into a sturdy circular frame. Then, he split the palm trunk into several branches and secured one end of each branch to the vine ring. After that, he wrapped palm leaves tightly around the structure to prevent any fish from escaping. Lastly, he placed some bait inside and carefully carried the trap down to the riverbank. Just as he finished setting it up, the rain began to pour. With nothing else to do, Ed returned to his shelter to rest and wait for the rain to pass. After a while, when the downpour had eased, he made his way back to the river to check the trap, but unfortunately, not a single fish had been caught. Sunlight finally broke through on day 7. Like every morning, Ed headed down to the river to check his trap, and look at that. He actually caught a fish this time, and it was nearly the size of his finger. That thing could probably feed 3 or 4 people. Time to gather some firewood and grill this catch. But while searching for wood, Ed stumbled upon something unsettling, several piles of scat on the ground. Judging by the size and shape, it was clearly left by a predator, likely a leopard or lion. Staying here any longer would be dangerous. Without hesitation, he rushed back to camp. There, Ed grilled the fish he had caught earlier. He took a bite, and just like that, it vanished into his mouth. No flavor, no texture. It was gone before he could even register it. In the blink of an eye, the final day had arrived. Before heading home, Ed checked his fish trap one last time, and to his surprise, he had caught 2 fish. He brought them back to camp and grilled them over the fire, enjoying a hearty meal of fish before returning home. When he spotted the rescue helicopter approaching, he quickly made his way to a nearby clearing, boarded the helicopter, and headed back home.